This past Sunday, Gervais and Maureen Miller went back to the nest, to the same location where Clayton Miller's body was found on May 6, 1990. Their intent was to demonstrate exactly where the body was and what position it was in. And to that end, they got a volunteer about Clayton's age and build, wearing the same color of clothes, to lay in the brook in exactly the same location and position that Gervais remembers seeing him in that day. And I was asked to come and document this event. Now, somehow, the members of Clayton Miller, The Final Word, got wind of this event. The Clayton Miller, The Final Word are a Facebook group that basically believe, in a nutshell, that the SiRT report proves that Clayton Miller's death was an accident and that it's time to let the whole thing go. So as you can imagine, they had quite a few reservations about this demonstration. And so a debate started up that I got dragged into that about how the place is so much more overgrown than it was and how much it has changed since the last 25 years. And you know, I'd never been to the nest, so I wasn't sure even what the place looked like. So I thought, okay, that's good points, because where I grew up out in Coxheath is way more overgrown than it used to be. So it really doesn't look like the same place much anymore. So I thought, okay, that's quite possible. And if that's true, it was really overgrown, it is possible maybe that Gervais might have misplaced the place. I still didn't believe that he was as far off as to where the body was found as SiRT proclaims. But I thought, you know, some mistakes may have crept in over the years. Because I had a picture in my head of this, you know, really big, like, forested area where Clayton's body was found in this obscure area in the woods with no landmarks around it to show where it would have been. And I deliberately didn't ask the Millers anything about what I was going to see until we got out there, so that I would go in completely unbiased. I wanted to make sure I was completely neutral in this, or as neutral as possible. And I also, that's also why I took what the people at Clayton Miller, The Final Word, had to say to heart too, is I thought, okay, maybe they might have a point. So I was completely unprepared for what I saw. When we got out there, the nest is apparently, I knew it was a former mining site. So, in retrospect, I suppose I should have been expecting this, but the place where Clayton Miller's body was found was just beyond this culvert in an enormous gorge. I say enormous, I mean it must have been at least 20-30 meters across. It was really deep, really steep. I had trouble getting down to this brook where he was found. The culvert and this enormous gorge were obvious landmarks. I have the worst sense of direction in the world, but if you put me back out there, I could find the location that Gervais showed me like that. No problem. Because the landmarks were just brutally obvious, even though there were a lot of trees, and apparently even the people that were there admitted there was a lot more trees there than there used to be. Even with the trees, the idea that he could have mistaken the location, given the location of this culvert and where these paths were, is completely ridiculous. I don't think there's any possibility, having seen it with my own two eyes and taken footage of it, that there's any way that Gervais could have mistaken the location. No way. It just isn't possible. The landmarks are too specific, and you're not going to tell me that a gorge that size changed enough in 25 years that he would have mistaken the path. They admitted the path was much wider and deeper than it used to be because of all the ATVs that had gone through. The path was originally created by bicycles going through, and kids at the time. They acknowledged that. But I mean, given the location of the culvert and the shape of this gorge and the way the water runs around it, there's no way that anyone would mistake the location. If Gervais is the only one who has seen this, so the people that wrote the SiRT report did not see this with their own two eyes, then I submit there is no questioning Gervais on that location. So we have established that. Now this is after having seen the location for myself and expecting it to be difficult to find based on what I was told. It wasn't. It's as obvious as an aluminum bat to the skull. Then while they were positioning the volunteer, I got another piece of information that caught my attention. Gervais was frustrated because he couldn't get the kid into the exact same position. And Gervais mentioned his stomach was off the ground. Like it was under the water, it wasn't touching the bottom. And the first thing I thought was that's not possible unless the body was already in rigor when it was put there. Because if it went limp in a place where the stomach was off the ground, it would bend like this. And that's in fact what was so frustrating. The kid couldn't get into the position because he couldn't lift his stomach up. He could not do it. Even Jervy tried to do it when the kid couldn't do it, and Jervy couldn't do it himself. And he said that proves you couldn't have a body die in that position. It's physically impossible. The only way it could have been in that position was if the body was placed there already in rigor. And the only way the body could have been placed there already in rigor is if he was already dead when he was put there. This is just common sense. Now, whether that means he was murdered somewhere else and placed in the brook, or whether he died accidentally somewhere and somebody panicked and placed him in the brook to try to cover up what they did, or whether it was actually the police that did it, we really don't know that yet. And that's why I've embarked on the project I'm doing now. While I was there were a few people that were present during this reenactment that were there, that went through the nest on that day. And I am going to collect all of these interviews, either from direct eyewitnesses or with people who spoke to eyewitnesses. No further out than that. I won't speak to somebody who spoke to somebody who spoke to somebody who was an eyewitness. I want to get as close to the facts as possible. No theories. I don't want to hear any theories. I just want to hear what these people did. And that's what I got in these interviews. You will be seeing a video about this in the next few months. I am hoping that this information will shake the truth loose. Now, as for those members of Clayton Miller, the final word, who actually believe that Jervy has the location wrong, either you've not been down there yourselves, or you weren't paying attention. And I suspect that most of you haven't been down there yourselves. Well, I have. I saw it. The landmarks are too obvious, too clear. The place is not that overgrown. Because of the way the soil was turned when it was a mine, not that much grows out there, to be perfectly honest. So it is simply not possible. The gorge is way too big to have changed in any dramatic way over 25 years. Jervy's location is the correct one. It has to be. There's no way he could have made a mistake that big with landmarks that obvious. Go down there and look for yourself. And in the meantime, maybe you should watch for this video I'm going to put out. It's going to be a few months. I want to collect as many interviews as I can get before I actually assemble this thing. But I suggest you watch it. And now, I exhort you to do what you've been telling me to do. Keep an open mind. Because you are the ones who've already made your decision that the mystery is over. Maybe you should open your minds. And maybe, just maybe, there's more to the story than you've been told.